Hi everyone. Today I'll be explaining the concept of Mendeleev's periodic table, which is a part of the chapter Periodic Classification of Elements, class 10th Chemistry. Before I start with the topic, I would like to introduce you to some important concepts. Now, here I'll be explaining that what is a periodic table and why is it called periodic table. Okay, let's get into it. First of all, a periodic table, it is a chart of elements prepared in such a way that the elements that have similar chemical properties occur in the same vertical column or group. So here basically we are classifying elements on the basis of their similar chemical properties. If elements are having similar chemical properties, we are putting them into their separate groups. For example, we have alkali metals. So, the metals like sodium, potassium, lithium, these all resemble the similar properties of alkali metals. So, we put them into the similar category of them. Whereas if I talk about the halogens like chlorine, bromine, fluorine, these all have their they have their similar chemical properties. So I group them into a different category. So basically grouping different kinds of elements on the basis of their similar chemical properties is a periodic table. Now why do we say it a table? Because it occurs in a tabular form. Now let's understand this concept in terms of Mendeleev. So here comes the line. It is called periodic because these elements having similar properties are repeated after certain intervals or periods, and table because it's in a tabular form. So basically, why do we say it periodic? Because the different elements, they start repeating their properties after certain period of time. Okay, so if I talk about sodium, let's go few elements far away from it. Then we will get some some other metal like lithium. So this lithium will resemble the similar properties with sodium. So here, what Mendeleev is trying to say is that after a specific time or certain period, the elements, they start resembling similar properties to some elements, and then we group them into different groups. Okay, now with this thought in our mind, let's move on to the Mendeleev's periodic table. First of all, we must know that who was Mendeleev. So Dmitry Ivanovich Mendeleev was a Russian chemist, and he was the first person to give the idea of periodic table. Till now, no other scientist could give the idea of a periodic table. All others were just finding out elements, their properties, and XYZ. But Mendeleev was the first person who organized these elements in the form of a periodic table. Now, let us go to the introduction to Mendeleev's periodic table. So in Mendeleev's periodic table, elements are arranged on the basis of the increasing atomic masses and the similarity of the chemical properties. So now all the elements are arranged on the basis of their increasing atomic masses, means the lighter elements are placed before the heavy atoms, and they are also grouped because of their similarity in the chemical properties as discussed before. But in the modern periodic table, we do not use the atomic mass as the classification, but we use the atomic number. So, one main feature for Mendeleev was that his classification was based on how elements react with oxygen and hydrogen. For example, we have different elements which form different oxides and different hydrides. Some elements have their formula for oxides as as R2O. Some have RO. Some have R3O, where R is the metal or the element, For example, sodium will form different oxide, magnesium will form different oxide, okay, sulfur will form different oxides, and so on. So what he did was he wrote different formulas, and he classified that which element is falling under which category. Like elements like sodium, potassium, lithium fell in the category of R2O, whereas some elements like magnesium fell in the category of RO. So he grouped different elements on this property, on this chemical property. Same goes with the hydrides. Here, Mendeleev took the formula of hydrides and oxides as the basic property of the elements for the classification in the periodic table. Next, Mendeleev's periodic table. Now let's start with the detailed explanation of it. The properties of elements are the periodic function of atomic masses. This is the Mendeleev's periodic law. What it means to say is that after a certain period of time or after a certain period, all the elements, they start repeating their chemical properties, and this is called Mendeleev's periodic law. When Mendeleev made a periodic table, at that time only 63 elements were known. And in his table, there were 7 periods, means 7 horizontal rows, and 8 vertical columns or 8 groups. The two main features that we're going to discuss in the Mendeleev's periodic table are the gaps in the periodic table, the gaps he left between different elements, the wrong order of atomic masses of few elements. Let's go. So here, first of all, merits of Mendeleev's classification of elements. Basically, I'm going to be explaining the concept of this through merits and demerits. So let's go to the merits first. Number first merit is that Mendeleev's periodic law predicted the existence of some elements that had not yet been discovered at that time. So he predicted that after this element, for example, after boron, some XYZ element would be discovered, like Eka boron would be discovered, which would have some properties which would be similar to that of boron. And this was very amazing thing which he discovered. And also he left proper gaps for these elements, not even gaps anywhere, but proper gaps at specific places. And also Mendeleev, he left a separate column for the noble gases, because he knew that after some time noble gases would be discovered, and if he would not create any space for them to put in, it would disturb the order of periodic table. So he created a separate column for the noble gases like argon, like neon, helium, XYZ. So here you can see the Eka aluminium which he predicted. He predicted that after aluminium, this Eka aluminium should come, and after some time, scientists discovered that this Eka aluminium was gallium. So here Eka aluminium and gallium, in this table we are given properties of these two elements. He discovered Eka aluminium. So the Eka aluminium which he predicted had somewhat similar properties to that of the now discovered gallium. Although this was such an amazing discovery of Mendeleev, there were a few limitations or demerits of this as well. For example, the position of isotopes couldn't be explained. Now we know that isotopes are the atoms of the same element that have different masses. For example, I have chlorine. There are 2 atoms of chlorine that have atomic mass 35 and 37. Now, because the table was based on atomic mass, so obviously it should have different spaces for chlorine 35, 37 as well. But now he couldn't explain. Then, a wrong order of some atomic masses of some elements couldn't be explained. Like he placed cobalt before nickel. Although nickel was a lighter element than cobalt, he still placed cobalt before nickel, And the reason why he placed was so that cobalt could match its properties with the element right next to it, that was rhodium. Here in the table you can see that here is cobalt and here is nickel. He placed it before nickel, although the weight of nickel was lighter than that of cobalt, so that cobalt and rhodium could match its properties. After the scientists spot the mistake, he couldn't justify it. Also, the correct position couldn't be assigned for hydrogen in the periodic table. This is a defect in the modern periodic table as well, that we do not have any specific place for hydrogen, because hydrogen can be placed with the alkali metal group and the halogen groups as well. Let's understand why. If I talk about why can hydrogen be placed with alkali metals, so hydrogen can be placed with alkali metals like sodium because it can combine with halogens to form compounds like like HCl, H2O. We all know what are halogens: chlorine, bromine. Now, element like sodium combines with them to form a compound. Same is done with hydrogen. So hydrogen can be put in the category of alkali metals. Now, this hydrogen can also be put in the category of halogens. Why? Because halogens are the ones which exist in diatomic state, like fluorine, F2, Cl2, Br2, I2. Okay, same way hydrogen can also be placed in same way hydrogen is also diatomic, H2. This is the reason why can hydrogen be placed with alkali as well as halogens. Yeah, one more thing that I forgot to mention, that that hydrogen can also be said halogen because it combines with different elements to form ionic and covalent compounds. If I talk about chlorine, it combines with different elements to form ionic as well as covalent compounds. Same goes with hydrogen, it combines with different elements to form ionic as well as covalent bonds. So that's it for the topic. Thank you for watching. I'll meet you in my next